Capire.
Good morning.
Good morning, everybody. I suggest to take another 1 minute in order for the people to come in. And then I promise to start. So good morning, everybody. And first of all, Happy New Year. We are living strange times, difficult times. It's snowing in Brussels. There were riots in Brussels last night. There's a crisis in Italy. So the environment is not easy, but I welcome you to this press conference on the impact of the new EU road haulage rules on combined transport. Next slide, please. Welcome is, of course, on behalf of UIRR. We are the Industry Association of Combined Transport all over Europe, and of the member companies having participated in the study. So Hupac, Combiverkehr, Rail Cargo Operator, Novatrans, Lineas Intermodal, and East-West Gate. Thank you to all those. And of course, a big thank you to the consultant, Oliver Wyman, who conducted the whole study. Some technical rules for all of us. Please keep your microphones muted. The questions are welcome during the question and answer session after a short presentation from Joris Dinka from Oliver Wyman Consultants and myself. The participants who will also be able to answer your questions are Joris Dinka from Oliver Wyman, Michael Stahlhut from Hupac, Alexander Ochs from Combiverkehr, Bernhard Ebner from Rail Cargo Operator, Thibaut Fruitier from Novatrans Green Modal, and myself. Next slide, please. So what is this study about? What's the background of the study? The background is mainly the relevance of road transport in the intermodal sector. So on long distance trucking, road is a direct competitor, and on short distance trucking, we need the road. The road is an essential complementer of the combined transport chains and responsible for the first and last mile transport. You all know that last year we had new EU road haulage rules with access to the market, access to the profession, social working, posting rules for truck drivers, all this in 2 regulations and 1 directive, which were adopted in July 2020. Why did we decide to conduct a study? What are the reasons for the study? Well, combined transport is a price taker. So prices for end-to-end combined transport are determined by long-distance trucking rates. The price and ease of access to providers of road positioning legs at the start and at the end of CT transport chains have a major impact on the competitiveness of end-to-end combined transport. The shorter the non-road portion of the carriage, the greater the importance. Unfortunately, 2 provisions of the legislation, first, the optional possibility allowing member states to suspend the compliance with Article 4 of the Combined Transport Directive, and secondly, the mandatory return of trucks to the countries of registration, have not been impact assessed by the Commission, as these were devised by the lawmakers and last minute, mainly by the Council. So the ultimate effect of the mix of rules in the legislation adopted in July 2020 has not been comprehensively assessed from the perspective of combined transport before. That's why we decided to conduct a study in order to better understand the impact of these rules on combined transport. Next slide. I will introduce now Joris Dinker, partner of Oliver Wyman Consultants, who will unveil the main findings and the methodology of our study. Joris, the floor is yours.
Yes, good morning. Let me introduce the study that we conducted in the second half of last year. If you could, Ralph, go to the
next slide.
Yeah, to the next slide. I would like to walk you through the study, first talking about the methodology and then the major results, and discuss those results in a more granular way on their and the impact on the country. So first of all, we had a three-steps approach to the study. First of all, we looked at the different new rules that were connected to the Mobility Package 1, and looked at the potential impact that it could have on combined traffic. There were three different areas or packages of rules that were relevant. One area were rules that would have an impact on operations for the combined traffic, topics like rules that would impact the cross-country capacity optimization of players. A second set of rules which were around that would impact the productivity of the trucking fleets. And a third set of rules which were around additional costs for management and tracking documentation of those newly introduced rules. We then built a cost model for the combined traffic, assessing on how those rules would impact or could impact the costs. We developed hypotheses that we discussed first of all with selected players, and we went then to a second phase where we did a survey with 20 logistics players and forwarders that are active in the combined traffic business, and went through their assessment of the impact of those different changes of rules on combined traffic in a two-steps approach. One around the additional costs that this would imply, and secondly the impact on the volume. We then built in a third step a model where we derived from the cost increases on a door-to-door base. We derived the potential reduction in volumes and the impact that this would have by country combinations like Italy, Germany, and derived from there the volume implications on a base on the volumes of 2019. So that's in a nutshell the methodology. If we go to the next slide. So regarding the 20 survey partners, so those 20 companies were from 10 different countries. So we wanted to have a good view on different geographies and different corridors where combined traffic is run. We had also a mix, or we looked at to have a mix of let's say business approaches to combined traffic. So companies that were using that had own fleets, players that were subcontracting fleets, players that were using and dispatching the fleets on an international scope, and others that were more domestic driven also in procurement, so that we had a representative sample. Overall, I think the feedback was pretty consistent across all those business approaches and countries. There were differences, but that's what we discussed with each one of those companies. Differences, obviously, on the length of the combined traffic haul. So we divided the effects on shorter combined traffic hauls below 500 kilometers, from 500 kilometers to 1,000 kilometers, and above 1,000 kilometers. So we brought in this granularity, but overall, I think the picture was pretty clear. And if we go to the next slide. So the takeaway basically from this survey was, on one side, that there was an impact on the cost side, but also on potentially on the capacity side of combined traffic, and I think there are regulations that will be effective in early 2022. Where we would have only from those a cost impact and the cost increase on the total combined traffic costs. There is a second rule around Article 4 that is subject to the decision of the EU members, that would have an additional impact, increasing the cost and reducing also the capacity that you can draw from in the different countries. So for the study, we took both effects together. So the numbers that you will see later on are both combined. Obviously, some of those cost increases will affect also long distance route haulage and road, which is let's say the competitor of combined traffic. Nevertheless, the impact on combined traffic is much higher. It is a business that is very cost sensitive, so any changes in costs will have a major impact on volumes as well. We did not calculate any domino effects that you have. So if you imagine that you have a volume reduction driven by higher costs on a train, on a combined traffic train, which is composed by different clients, then obviously the costs for the rest of the clients and volumes that are on the train will increase, and there could be a kind of domino effect in the sense that the offer gets unattractive for the other clients too. So we didn't include that into our calculation. And if you take that together, the risk that we see and in the discussion and in the survey is that you could have potentially a reverse modal shift from rail to road due to the higher costs and the lack of capacity, which is and we'll see it later on, about 8% of the volumes. But I would suggest to go to the next slide. So here you see the volume reduction by lane. So it's a matrix. So if I take the left top corner, it would be from the lane from Germany, the traffic from Germany to Italy. Here you see the impact would be between 8 and 10%. I would not go to the 0.5% precision, but it can be pretty substantial. Germany, Italy, as you can see, or Italy, Germany, the same. So this is a lane that is highly impacted, and other lanes like Belgium, Italy, which are also important for the maritime traffics, is impacted as well quite substantially. As you can see, some of the bigger markets of combined traffic in Europe will be and can be highly affected. It's given the structure of the combined traffic business. It is obviously a lane by lane discussion, and the impact can differ quite substantially between the lanes. So I think in terms of impact and to the players, obviously the impact is on the players will depend on their business portfolio and lane portfolio, but it can be substantial. If we move to the next slide, we've got here a map. Yeah, a map on the right corner below. You see the most affected countries, with Germany and Italy, closely followed by France and Belgium, and then Austria and the other countries where the implementation as it is of those new rules will have an impact on combined traffic in a significant way.
Thank you very much, Joris, for this very comprehensive explanation and the findings of the study. So this study is really representative, and the main assessment is clearly there is an impact on both cost and capacity of combined transport. There might be a deterioration of the competitiveness of combined transport, and potentially even a reverse mode shift from rail back to road. The figure that you should bear in mind are the 5% cost increase for long distance trucking, the 9% cost increase for combined transport on distances shorter than 1,000 kilometers. And if the new EU road haulage rules are completely implemented, there would be the up to 8% of combined transport performance, which will revert back to road-only transport. Thank you very much, Joris, for these methodology explanation and the findings. Next slide, please. Some words about the impact of decarbonization of the European economy. You all know about the European Green Deal. And of course, some people would say today with the Corona crisis that European Green Deal is not important anymore. We think the contrary. We think that a recovery, an economic recovery, is only possible with the European Green Deal. And Europe will have to cut over 90 million tons of CO2 emissions annually if it wants to achieve the 55% reduction target set for 2030. The transport sector, as you know, has increased its greenhouse gas emissions by 25% since 1990. And it is the only sector of the European economy that failed to reduce its carbon footprint. I think this is something you really have to bear in mind. If the new EU road haulage rules, so the part of the mobility package 1, are now adapted to their entirety, it will cause an 8% reduction in combined transport volumes, and total transport CO2 emission will grow by 12 million tons over a 10-year period. You really have to see these figures. On the other hand, if the European climate law target of 55% reduction is to be reached by 2030, combined transport will have to double its performance to nearly 400 billion ton kilometers per year, as foreseen in the strategy for smart and sustainable mobility. So this doubling would deliver 38 million tons of CO2 savings over 10 years. Europe needs every ton of CO2 saving that can be put together to achieve its decarbonization objective. Next slide, please. So what needs to be done? What could be solutions? First of all, we suggest to refrain from the optional possibility to suspend Article 4 of the CT directive. This is very clear. I think a clever enforcement can achieve the desired results without this harmful measure. So this would be the first and easiest thing to do, and we'll campaign the member states on this. The second point is a distance-based road tolling and internalization of external costs, to adopt the Eurovignette Directive reform in line with the European Parliament's position, and of course to reform the energy taxation, proportionality with the energy content of the fuel, and to adopt a timetable for 100 euro per ton price of CO2. These are the first measures to be taken. Next slide, please. The most promising measures are, of course, the temporary compensatory measures. Until the price neutrality, meaning the complete internalization of external cost, will be achieved in 2050, according to the Commission, we need some short-term, some mid-term, and some long-term measures. Here only some examples of measures that could be taken. The waiver of the train path costs, for example, parking and cancellation fees, which is legally possible now until the end of this year. We should adopt a block exemption for state aid, compensation for the productivity gap for under-length 740 meter along the rail freight corridors. You know that if we don't achieve the 740 meters everywhere on all the 10T corridors, we have to compensate it somehow. This is what is meant here. And of course, we could promote the compatibility of trailers of the road modes with the modes of rail, with the wagons. And here could be an idea to have an investment cost subsidy or a compensation for reduced loading weight for the current not optimized trailers. On the midterm, the upgrade of the 10T network for train paths is a must. The cranability of semi-trailers as a standard could be also a solution, and to improve the quality by revising passenger timetables is an absolute must. So the quality will, of course, increase the productivity and therefore also the competitiveness of combined transport. And on long term, we have to secure capacity for freight transport through network utilization concepts with the TTR. The fourth measure is more transparency, a better reporting, regular and comparable reporting in order for decision makers to be properly informed. And this reporting from the member states should come not only every 5th year, but every 2nd year, really in order to better understand and to have a better transparency. Next slide, please. These were the findings of the study. This is where we are standing today. You have heard about the key takeaways and the assessment of the study. You have heard about some solutions, and I would like to give you now the floor to ask the questions, not only to Joris Dinker as consultant, but also to the other participants which were introduced in the beginning. So the floor is yours, dear journalists. It's addressed to you. It's a press conference. Please come with your questions and share these with us. Does this mean that there's no question from the journalists?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes. Hi.
I was looking for an option to raise my hand, but I'm not sure there is one in this application.
Go ahead. Please introduce yourself and then come with a question. Address the question to Joris or to one of the participants as you like.
Well, okay. I'm Hanne Kokkerij. I'm a journalist for Politico Europe in Brussels. I had a couple questions, but let me start with an obvious one. You mentioned that one of the solutions is the adoption of Eurovignette rules as agreed by the European Parliament. And I was wondering why you're backing the European Parliament's position rather than, say, the Council's.
Akos, do you want to answer?
I guess that would be a question for you.
Sure. Yes. Hello. This is Akos Ershek. I'm policy advisor here at UIRR. And yes, the Parliament position is very clear in implementing or mandating the implementation of distance-based tolling and not allowing time-based vignettes to prevail, which we still unfortunately have in a number of important member states. Also, the Parliament position is more progressive on issues of of how the tolls are calculated and how the revenues are then distributed. The Council position is basically saying in our reading that as all options remain open to the member states, that there would be no change, no meaningful change whatsoever if that was to be the winning position in Eurovignette.
Does this answer your question?
Yes, thank you. I don't know if there are any other questions. If not, I would immediately.
Go ahead. Go ahead. Feel free.
Let me. Oh yeah, there is obviously the Commission's impact assessment, which we're expecting the results soon. You know, the assessment of the two provisions in the mobility package that they said might run counter the Green Deal, one of which was indeed on combined transport. What do you expect to come out of that assessment? And do you expect that to be in line with your own findings?
We expect that it will not be far away at all from our own findings, but we still have to wait a few weeks now. But there will be an assessment, and I'm sure if you ask me as directly as that it will be going exactly the same way, and that the study is really representative.
And a bit of a basic question: in what would that mean for the mobility package? Would that mean that there would have to be some changes?
That would be great if possible, but I think for us the most important is that the member states do not take the option of suspending Article 4 of the CT directive. This already would help, and for the rest it will be the market which we regulate it, and I think the measures on better productivity are the most important ones from the sector side.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other questions or comments on the study itself?
Hello, can you hear me? This is Frank Hütten from the Deutsche Verkehrszeitung in Brussels.
Hello, Frank.
Yes, hello. I also didn't find the button to raise my hand, so I'm just coming in like this. If it's okay, just please explain to us a bit more about why you think that there will be all these shortages in the road leg transport, where if these rules should kick in. Why don't you think that national markets will adapt and develop? And also the second question, I mean, cabotage, even if the member states apply this rule, will not be abolished. No? It will still be possible, but subject to limitations. And don't you think that these limitations are well, useful in a way to combat misuse of the cabotage, of an unrestricted cabotage? Thank you.
So let me answer the second question. We are convinced that there might be some misuse here and there, but the harm of this completely waiving of the Article 4 rule would not be good, because this is a principle, and the principle is the equivalence between intermodal and road on cross-border traffic. And if you just take out this, the negative effects would be much bigger than the misuse. And I think there might be other solutions for the enforcement. So it's better to have a good enforcement than to completely take out Article 4 of the CT directive, which is really one of the most important principles of combined transport. And I would like Joris to answer the first question, please.
Yes. So on capacity restrictions, obviously we are looking in the mid and long term. So we're not taking any COVID effects that we have seen last year into consideration. The industry is working quite a lot with international haulage companies. Just supporting combined traffic last and first mile, and quite significantly. So you would have quite significant capacity that you would need to source from the local markets, including the quality that you need, etc., etc. You would need to you would need to integrate those new players into your carrier database. You would need to qualify them, etc., etc. So that's quite a lot that you would need in terms of local capacity, and and I think it's linked also to the second question that Charlie has answered. So the attractiveness to run or to operate the fleets across borders is obviously quite reduced if we're taking the cool-off periods that are in the new rules. So we assume that this capacity would, in the worst case, that this capacity would just disappear from those markets, and again covering the capacity that you need in such a short time frame, qualifying these suppliers, etc., is pretty tough. But maybe some of the some of the players that are on the call can add some color to what I've said.
Therefore, member states should not be entitled to impose any limitation on this. Thank you, Rose, for this answer. I saw that Regina Weinrich has raised her hand. Regina?
Yeah. Do you have any thoughts that there is no...
We hear a lot of echoes, but
Yeah.
Otherwise, could you in the chat, you could just write your question. It would be easier, perhaps, because we don't hear you. Seems that there's a technical problem. So please, Regina, just write your question in the chat and then we'll answer to it.
Ralf, Michael, may I should also refer to the last question from Mr. Hüttenheim, if possible.
Please.
May just one or two comments on the question raised from Mr. Hütten. Taking a look at this nice European landscape, we get a knowledge that there's one of the biggest industrial area is in a circuit of 300 kilometer radius. This is the Rhine-Ruhr Valley and the ARA area. Knowing that, and in this area you have 4 countries, you have a huge interlink operations between these various countries. That means if there are any restrictions given by the mobility package using drivers and from this country or this country, this is limiting the strength of a system. This is the second hint I want to raise. We have to understand in the year of the rail that we have to use the modes with its strengths. That means intermodal on a long distance has its rail strengths, and on a short distance is at its road strengths. That means we need something which is seamless on a short stretch, and these 300-kilometer radius with 4 countries is just one example where we have to understand Europe. Europe is an idea of various countries which are working close together, and various industries which are working close together. And if we want to reduce, like Joris Dinker and Ralf Schali mentioned, want to reduce the carbon impact, we have to go for our low carb diet, and we have to do it with the strength of these systems. And we have to understand Europe, and therefore I'm really grateful to take a look at the impacts coming out of this study, and we have to take our measures to enlarge the strengths of both modes. That means we have to enlarge the strength of rail by the measures showed by Ralf, and we have to reduce the impact of these 4-country impacts, just as an example for Europe. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We have to understand Europe, definitely, Michael. Now I see the question from Regina. The question is, do you have concrete information on member states that want to suspend compliance with Article 4 of the Combined Transport Directive? Akos, I want to give this question to you because you are direct contact and you prepared also the country sheets.
Yes, thank you. Well, all we know is that the Road Coalition countries stood behind this proposition in the Council, and more specifically, Denmark and Sweden were the sponsors of the idea. So the whole concept came from them. Therefore, and this is just a suspicion because no one has made an official indication to this time, but we suspect that these 2 countries are preparing to implement the suspension. The question is that there is no proof so far delivered by either country of any misuse of Article 4, and they are standing against a ruling by the European Court of Justice, which says that these domestic road legs that are part of a border crossing combined transport operation, they are part of international transport, therefore they cannot be limited by a member state.
Thank you very much, Akos. There's another question concerning the budget. Does UIRR have any idea of the budget necessary to implement the measures asked?
A participant
Short, mid, and
has
long
joined the
term
meeting.
together, presented on the page. What needs to be done? I would like to give these questions to the players in the market. So Michael Stahlhut, Alexander Ochs, Bernhard Ebner, Thibaut Fruitier. What would you say? What money is needed? What budget is needed? Michael?
I just try to unmute myself, and taking a look at the the first idea is what is the easiest is to again to raise the strength of the rail mode. For me, it is something like reducing the track access. We are going down to 0. If we are really have the willingness to go for a cut of 90 million of carbon dioxide, we really have to strengthen the modes, and that means for me going down to, for example, for zero track access fee, that means something. Just taking a look at the German or at the Rhine-Alpine corridor. That is something like 60,000 trains multiplied with 500 to 800 kilometers multiplied with 3. This is the easiest way to make a calculation. This is only for intermodal, and this is the easiest one. This is the easiest one because then we really give an empowerment into the system. The same is, for example, also for the last mile on road. Why shouldn't we open the discussion for the last one on road for the tolls? Yeah, and this is if you are using the intermodal system. Then the next one is, and I hope this is also fastly calculated, is the disadvantage of the craneable trailers. The question is, how many trailers do you need, and what is the impact? And there's maybe something like 1,000, 2,000 euros for making a trailer craneable, if I get the industrial information right. This could be a payback, could be done if you get something like a intermodal cart. If you are using an intermodal train, you are getting a payback for these 2,000 euros, which you have to invest to make a trailer craneable or to buy a craneable trailer. And this is for me clear because there's a payback if you see the external costs of having more carbon dioxide. This we have to understand that there's a payback coming out of the reduction of the carbon dioxide. We do not see it in our pockets, but we see this in the environment. These are just two figures I put on the table, and maybe we can also show the other figures, which then leads to a full environmental budget. Is it okay?
Thank you, Michael. So we have to go measure by measure. Thibaut, from your side, do you want to comment on the budget?
Regarding the budget, there are multiple kind of way to take along the sector to promote the intermodal, and I fully agree with Michael, because we can take along the operator and the people who are making the business and the trains and whatever we want. But I think as well we need some visibility. Sometimes some of the countries wants to promote, but the way they are promoting the intermodal is too short. We definitely need something that we can have some visibility, because, as said Michael previously, they need our customers, because they are the key. They have to invest, and if we want them to justify such investment, and you see the gap when we need to make 100 new trailers on the market, the gap between road ones and the intermodal ones could justify a kind of this decision which could be on the opposite of what we expect. And now in our country, France, as an example, we should say sometimes the COVID has some good impact and boost their way to see the intermodal as a new way to boost the shift model. But the problem that we have is that what has been defined is good. So reduction of the of the rail path access, take along the gap between the road, the handling cost, which is not existing on the road. But the problem is always the same. For how long? And how long is the big question mark on our country. So we were far, maybe on delay regarding that point. But today they are taking the good decision, but now we are pushing for visibility. That could not be a big part of money every year, but we need it for years. And that will definitely boost the intermodal at least in France, which is today, I think, on delay regarding the market share.
Definitely, thank you. Any other comment from Bernhard Ebner, Alexander Ochs?
Hello, this is Andreas Kraus from Kombiverkehr. Alexander, I speak in behalf of Alexander Ochs because I was also a member of the team making this study.
Yeah.
But to put it in a nutshell, the question was about the budget we need. I think it's not only a question of budget, but it's a question of framework. Your intermodal transport needs a reliable economic and political framework. This is the only way to guarantee further growth on the railways, which at the same time meets that important goal of climate protection. So what we want to say is it's not a question of budget, but a question of a framework which we can plan and can be reliable for the future. This is the important way. And at the end, railways is a guaranteed way to get so much climate protection for the euro you put into the system, much more than changing the system on the roads. So this is the way it should be, and that's what we are fighting for.
Thank you, Andreas, for this comment. Anna Samsonova asks, could you please answer in figures just concerning the budget necessary to upgrade 10T network to 740-meter train in P400? This, of course, is a huge figure, but we are not able to give you exactly the figure because on the 10T corridors, it's different from one 10T corridor to the other because they are not at the same level. So we cannot give you the figure, but we will search it and give you an answer afterwards. Is there any comment on this from Bernhard Ebner? You want to react?
Yes, in general, and also to the topic that was discussed before. I think it's not serious to put a few figures on the table right now. Yeah, but I'm sure these figures can be delivered. But I really want to focus also on one point that does not really cost any money. This is the point 1 in the sheet, what needs to be done, refraining from the optional possibility to suspend Article 4 of the Combined Transport Directive is something that is not budget-wise a problem. This is something every country can do and can create a real value in helping intermodal transport. I think this is a very important thing. All the other points can be surely proved with figures, and I'm sure UIRR will deliver these figures afterwards.
We certainly will. Thank you very much, Bernhard. There's a question. We saw the presentation proposed to resolve the problematic solution. However, what would be the immediate actions that UIRR or other parts concerned could take in order to object the implementation of measures? The immediate action is, of course, to convince the member states not to take the option to suspend Article 4 of the CT directive, but all the other measures, as you have seen, are short-term, mid-term, and long-term measures. We have to do all in the same time. There's not one measure which we can start. It's all the measures, but step by step. There's another question from Regina Weinrich concerning the misuse. I would like to give this question to Joris and to Akos, please. She says that no member state has delivered any evidence of misuse of Article 4, while there are doubtless irregularities around workers' rights, posting, safety rules, driving time, etc. These rules could be enforced through clever enforcement measures and not by restricting combined transport. Joris and Akos, could you react to that?
Yes, should I go first? So,
Yes.
So yes, we believe, and this is according to our best knowledge, that there has never been a case brought against abusive use of Article 4. The breaches of any rules in road haulage relate much more to posting of workers, of social rules, resting time, respect for resting time, respect for driving time, and these breaches can be solved partially by the electric tachograph based enforcement, so technology. They could be solved in a regulatory way, whereby a truck, if it operates for more than a set number of days in a country, should be registered or required to register into the vehicle registry of that particular country, which would allow the policeman to see much more of the background and the movement of that particular truck on their territory. It can also involve clever enforcement, can involve, let's say, terminals on a partnership basis with the authorities, where information can be better shared and distributed. So there's a lot of solutions that would not hurt combined transport, would not disrupt the use of Article 4 traffic, which has become a mainstay since about 4 decades of its existence of combined transport. And so we cannot be as simplistic to say, okay, we're going to take this away and it will solve the problems. It will not solve the problems, but it will cause huge collateral damage through hurting combined transport.
Thank you, Akos. You want to add something, Joris?
No, just on the calculation and the modeling that we did. Obviously, we did not assume that today you've got lower costs because you're not sticking to any rules or anything like that. So the reduction in volumes are calculated in following one-to-one the rules. That's comment number one. Comment number two is the new rules are adding a lot of management and administrative processes to what you have today already. So the question is, in the future, how can you maybe do that leaner, or at least put some digitalization around it in order to reduce the burden from that?
Thank you, Joris. There's a question from Frank Hütten again. Could you please elaborate a bit more on the compensation for productivity gap for under length 740 meters? What do you
may I take this, Ralf?
Yes, I wanted to ask you to take it. Take it.
Ralf, I'll just try to open my video. Okay. Knowing that that there's an average length of rail of trains in via the Rhine-Alpine, for example, of 550 going up to 690, because the German infrastructure is not ready for the 740 meters. There's a lack of 60 meters. 60 meters are at an average 2 to 3 wagons. 2 to 3 wagons is 1,500 euros net effect. Taking a look at the average in Germany, I guess it's 600 something meters, knowing that there's 740 possible, and which is not a long train, which is just a normal train length. That means a normal lorry has a length, and it's not a gigaliner. A normal lorry. If I try to compare this with road, we have to shorten every lorry by 10 to 20%. And now we just want to use our full productivity, which is maybe given in 2030. That was just an information given by UIRR that in 2030 we want to be ready for 740 meters. We just want to bridge the gap to have a normal productivity with a normal train length by 740 meters. And this could be done by reducing track access fee, by giving an opportunity to to cover this productivity gap, like done in the past. Also in Switzerland. In Switzerland, there was a productivity gap paid for going over the Alps, and this was paid by the state. Maybe we find the same idea also for this for bridging this productivity gap using a normal train length of 740 meters. Could I describe it right, Mr. Hütten?
I think this is perfect, Michael. This answers perfectly the question of Frank Hütten. And I would like to add the point that please don't forget the terminals and all these upgrading of train length, because if you don't have the same length, upgraded length in the terminals than you have on the lines, you will lose the whole productivity you gain on one hand side in the terminals again. So terminals have to be completely integrated into these upgrading of length. But this is, of course, in the 10T corridors, and this will hopefully happen. Thank you for your comment. Paul Kronberger just said, in upgrading the network, don't forget the terminals. So this is done. There is a question from France. Perhaps you can raise the question directly from AFTP France. Pour la nouvelle, could you raise the question directly? There was a comment. Otherwise, I will read it. It's just a little comment about P400. We are involved with CN in the definition of a new gauge for the profile of trainable Frigo semi-trailers, 2,600 millimeter large. We have taken the engagement to extend this new gauge for the whole Mediterranean corridor. It means Spain and France and Italy as well. So very interesting information. Thank you to AFTP for that. Are there any other questions or comments? Maybe, of course, regarding the study itself.
Okay. Hello.
Yes?
Here's AFTP from France.
Yes, if you can elaborate a little bit on your comment.
Yes, just to identify, P400, it's not a gauge according with the European rules of gauge.
Not yet.
And we have to transform this to a gauge to be compliant with the TSI. So we are working to define a model for at least to be implemented in the whole 10T. We fully agree with this proposal of this study. And we have a huge problem, and perhaps Mr. Stalhoed could know the problems we have in France to introduce the trains from Barcelona to Antwerp, and even from Barcelona to Busto and other destinations in Central Europe, because the main traffic here in Spain and France is the Frigo semi-trailers coming from southern Spain to the Central Europe to distribute vegetables and fruits and so on. So it's a very, very huge, important thing, because we have more than 14,000 semi-trailers per day in the Mediterranean border of La Junquera, and we have to make a shift to rail immediately to how to proceed to put all these semi-trailers, non-craneable semi-trailers on the train as well. So this is the information, and I can confirm you the huge impact to implement 740 meters trains here in Spain, not in France, but in the other hand, the cost to implement the P400 available gauge for these trains, it's not a cheap solution. We have to invest money, but it's not so complicated. Many times there are many minds and ideas not good. Just it was the.
Thank you so much for your comment. It's very concrete, very precise. So parameter 10T parameter P400 is on track. That's what I resume here. Thank you very much. Eric Lambert, you had a comment. You want to raise it orally, please? Eric? I call Eric Lambert.
maybe waiting for Eric, just one comment on what you
Please.
just said. I think there are 2 points. I think there are the connections, and France is one of the weakest point regarding the gauge. We are again hardly working, and the infrastructure, SNCF Réseau is working on that. But the problem is again the time. So that today we have to define what is the P400 gauge in France, which is unknown. And as the country that has to be crossed from Spain to Italy or wherever, we definitely need a kind of strategy of the proper infrastructure itself, about the capacity to promote and to understand the added value to open that gauge for the whole market. We see, thanks according to the UIRR figures we publish every year, that the craneable and as well the non-craneable is a good way to boost intermodal, because it's growing faster than the containers itself. So we in France, or as Nova Trans and in different organization we are part of, pushing that we have a concrete strategy coming from Réseau towards the TEN-T corridors as well, because I think that it has to come from the infrastructure directly. But indeed, the demand is very high, and as you said, the fruit and vegetable could be a good sector to speed up the shift model.
Thank you very much for this additional comment, Thibaut. Akos, you had some comments to share?
Yes, thank you. Well, I just made some, there was a question on what is the recommendation to the German government specifically of UIRR. And here we have some very specific recommendations. First of all, in the Climate Action Plan of Germany, there's a promise that a concept for modal shift will be, concept document for modal shift will be produced by the ministry at some unspecified later time, or perhaps by 2023, but it should be done right now. I think that is very important. Secondly, we also are convinced that the technology neutrality as a principle should be maintained, and the German government foresees a very forceful measures on already implementing very forceful measures to promote, for instance, LNG-powered trucks without the evidence that they would contribute in any way to decarbonization. Huge amounts of money are being pledged to developing hydrogen as a road transport fuel. In our best knowledge, this there's no evidence that hydrogen will be a viable road fuel in the foreseeable future. And very regrettably, this is not only in a case for Germany, but the French government also seems to have selected a particular technology, hydrogen being the again as the fuel of the future. I'm not saying that hydrogen will not play a role in energy policy and other areas, but as a road fuel, we have extreme strong reservations and evidence on the side of several studies that question this provision, and it seems to be flying sort of under the radar. That all the money, nobody's asking the question, why are billions pledged for hydrogen? Nobody's asking the question, why are hundreds of millions released for promotion of LNG? And at the same time, when Intermodal says that, well, 50 million, 100 million worth of support to a proven system of transport is too much or not. So this is the context. Thank you.
Thank you, Akos. You want to add a few words on the indicators and the country sheets of the position paper?
But we have not presented this part because it's a detail, but it's an important detail. The way we intend to approach our communication is on a member state basis, because each member state has its own unique peculiarities. The competence on transport is split between Europe and the European Union and member states. And so we understanding this and understanding that the European Union has spoken, we have all the necessary documents on record. Soon we will have the climate law. It's now up to the member states. So we need to take this discourse to the level of member states. And so we produce these member state country fact sheets, which highlight the very highly divergent state of the art. And as combined transport in Europe is about 85 to 90% a cross-border exercise, it is an essential demand, as it was reiterated by Mr. Kraus on behalf of Mr. Ox and also by Mr. Stahlhut, that this is a European exercise. We need standard European rules on both sides of an internal border. And the diversity needs to be highlighted, and we need to achieve a convergence, and we need to gradually eliminate. We need a roadmap to get rid of this diversity, this heterogeneity, this undesired heterogeneity. Yeah,
thank you, Akkas. That's exactly what Michael said earlier. We have to understand Europe. Are there any final, before we close the press conference, any final comments from the participants, from Michael, from Andreas, from Bernhard, from Thibaut? You want to add something on what has been said so far? Thibaut? Everything is clear? Michael?
I just want to add maybe something. What we are doing here is on the table is to strengthen the European CO2 reduction force. What we want to is to take a look at the rulings given by the mobility package according Article 4. Strengthen means there is a need for both modes, but with the right empowerment, and this is needed. Besides this, we have to take a look at the measures discussed so far. Yeah. But this is my remark here.
Thank you, Michael. Bernhard? No further comment? And,
I quickly add two comments? Oh, sorry. Yeah, I think more or less everything is said. The goal is to make intermodal as strong as possible, because doing the things that have to be done, yeah, to bring volume from the road to rail and to bring this positive effect on CO2. Intermodal transport is necessary, and it's the most important way to do this. And every measurement that leads to a situation that intermodal traffic has a problem to prepare their services and bring their services to the customers has to be shown on the table, and this is the thing that has been done today. So I'm very hopeful that everything that we presented gets to the right addresses, and we can develop combined transport furthermore, like we did within the last years.
This would be my wish for the new year as well. Thank you, Bernhard. Any comment from Kombiverkehr side?
Not at the moment, thanks.
Okay.
Can I please add 3 comments from the Netherlands?
Yes.
Mark Jansen, Director Operations, Hoopak Rotterdam.
Please.
The 740-meter study, we were also involved in the Pantea study launched at the end of last year. It's not only a matter of infrastructure availability, technically, but also, like you mentioned, the terminals. What we find is that the marshalling yards in front and behind the terminals are also not sufficiently supporting the 740 meter train lengths. Therefore, many extra kilometers to marshal empty compositions to and from terminals is taking too many kilometers and costs. So marshalling yards also need to really have to be upgraded on this account. Regarding the access charges, what we are finding in the Netherlands is a very long lobby time has taken to convince our Dutch infrastructure to follow our neighboring country like Germany. Although after a very long process, several extra cost items are being put on the table, making the cost calculations very intransparent for us to know what it really costs to actually produce a train. Parking costs, no more free time of a few hours for the arrival trains. Therefore, the EVU's and also the operators are confronted with extra charges on a monthly basis. This is really not creating a good basis for a strong intermodal network.
Thank you for pointing out these challenges, which are real concrete challenges we have to face. I would like to close the press conference now, but please bear in mind the findings of the study. 5% cost increase for long distance trucking is the outcome of this part of the mobility package 1. 9% cost increase for combined transport on distance shorter than 1,000 kilometers is a threat. And the other threat is that there might be a reverse modal shift from rail back to road of 8%. And of course, we have to do the utmost to lower the impact on both cost and capacity of combined transport, not to deteriorate the competitiveness of combined transport, and to avoid, if possible, any reverse modal shift. With this, I suggest that we continue with the journalists and, of course, all the other participants on a bilateral level. I thank you very much for your participation. I wish you a wonderful new year. We have a lot of challenges. Let's go for the challenges. Have a nice day. Bye-bye.